There's a certain amount of intrigue if you get involved in mysteries. Whether you're reading a mystery novel or you're watching a mystery movie, oftentimes it's a question of who did it. And of course, the butler did it. Well, that's kind of the case that I have with this project of this coach. It's kind of a mystery, and the question is, who did it? So in the world of coach building, what is really common in our area is from two different main manufacturers. One is from Concord, New Hampshire, the Abbot-Downing. The other is from the West Coast, and that is the Hendersons. So the question is this maybe one of those? I don't think it's an Abbot-Downing. I've done numbers of those and I don't see the signatures there. I haven't worked on that many Hendersons, but this just doesn't smell like it is commercially made to me. So I want to show you just how this project showed up in the first place. When this whole project showed up, the story with it was that the grandfather was going to have this restored for the grandson. This had been a coach that had been in the family since its conception. So this is the condition that it showed up in. It was kind of a pile, as you can see. The undercarriage was pretty intact, but the body was just bits and pieces, as you have come to be well acquainted with. So I went through first the process of building the wheels so that this could be movable so I could get it into the shop. Originally I built this with steel tires, thinking that we were going to keep this all original, but then with further communication with the grandson, he preferred that he would have rubber tires. So I did change this back over to a rubber tire approach. Well, once I had this in the shop, the process was to dismantle the whole running gear and completely rebuild it. Now I don't have that whole process videoed for your benefit, but I did take a few pictures of its disassembly. Initially I rebuilt the front axle and then totally disassembled the reaches and the rear axles and did all the sandblasting, and eventually ended up with the undercarriage completely rebuilt. Well, at that point in time when I had the undercarriage finished, that was 2015, and it got superseded by the 20 Mule Team Borax project. So this undercarriage went into storage. Well, wagon builders tend to have their own signatures and styles. And that's one thing that I do concentrate on when I am rebuilding these wagons or coaches. I focus on signatures and styles because they are all different. Well, this coach kind of intrigues me. There's some things in it that just doesn't look to me like it is commercially made. I have a hunch maybe this was a hometown made coach, and hopefully I can show you some of the telltale signs on this coach body why I think that. Well, do you remember in last week's video when I was going through and sorting out some of this ironwork, I was trying to figure out just what goes to where, but in that process I noticed some of the ironwork was actually made from buggy tires. That kind of stood out as kind of a red flag. Why is somebody salvaging buggy tires to make this coach with? You remember this kind of a contraption that we ran into? Kind of an odd set of clamp affair. Well, these two irons on the bottom look to me like they are buggy tires. You can see they're flat on the inside. In fact, you can, if I turn this around here, you can actually see there's a forge weld when the tire was put together right here, but it's flat on the inside, round on these outside edges, which is indicative of how a buggy tire wears. And both of them are the same. So that was just one of the little seeds for thought, was why would a commercial company resort to using recycled buggy tires. It just seemed odd to me. Well, there were some other irons also that I pointed out, not in a lot of detail, but as I was going through kind of matching up these irons, there were some of the irons that I had mentioned, if I can show this here. Some have a fairly long, drawn out taper, while others are really short and blunt. Again, if the same blacksmith made this, why was there such a variety in signature styles in the ironwork? One of those mysteries that I'm not sure I have the complete answer for. Well, there are a few other signatures that kind of strike me odd as well. And as I get into this project, I'm going to show you a few of those little oddities. But the first thing that I want to figure out is, what is the physical size of this coach body? What is its length and what is its width? Now I'm dealing with rotted wood, what remnants are left, and the ironwork. And they are different from side to side because the right side has suffered a little more deterioration than the left side. So I'm going to start out trying to determine what is the length of this body. Well, this driver's box and left side panel, they're pretty loose jointed. If I kind of square it up, I'm going to double check to see if the top iron on the sideboard is the actual physical length of this box side. I'm kind of suspecting it probably is. So the back end of this left side, there is no framework left, but yet there are still bolts in the ironwork intact that kind of help determine some of these lengths. Remember last week I pulled out a piece of iron that I said this kind of is intriguing to me. Well, this iron is the rear body brace that supports the rear back panel and the boot which carries the luggage. So this is intertwined with the back framework of this body, and some of the holes in this framework line up with the holes of the bolts still left in this ironwork. When I first put these together, I'm thinking, well, maybe this top iron is an inch short of where this rear brace should be. But I have to remember, this is pretty loose jointed. I'm kind of suspicioning that this top iron is the truest indicator, but when I initially cut my side frame boards, I'm going to cut them an inch or two long until I got this kind of mocked up a little bit and know a little bit more for sure. But this top ironwork is indicating that this body is 8.5 feet long. Well, on the back third of these side frames, they're actually double thickness, 2.5 inches by whatever the width is yet, I don't know that. But on top of this framework is a fairly substantial piece of iron. Both sides are 1/2 inch thick, but they are different widths. The left side is 2.5, and you'll see if we go over to the right side, it's 3 inches. And as I examine the leading edge of this right side iron, it's drawn out noticeably different than the left side is. The left side is fairly square. And there's a difference in length measurement also. So this is another one of those mysteries that kind of adds up in my mind. If this was made by a production commercial carriage shop, why did they use two different size and widths and styles of iron in the main body framing? It just doesn't make sense. But yet if it was a smaller hometown individually owned carriage shop, much more likely that they are going to use iron that they have available, and possibly not all uniform. Another thing that stands out to me is lack of uniformity or symmetry between the right and the left side. You can see the bolt pattern through these heavy iron plates is different from the right and the left. Question is, why? So these bolt patterns of the top irons go through the main frame, and they have to intersect with the rocker irons, which this whole coach body sits on. This is where the leather thorough braces ride. These leather thorough braces allow these coaches to actually kind of rock, kind of like a boat. They're very comfortable riding. But on the left side, each of these rockers, front and back, have 3 bolts going through each opposite end. On the right side, they only have 2. Again, one of those puzzles that remains a mystery to me. Why would somebody in a commercial shop make this coach body so non-symmetrical? I just don't understand that. So the next question is, I think I have the length at 8.5 feet. What's the width? You know, we have the front cross member frame that the driver's footboard lower hinges fasten to, but a lot of it is gone, but the ironwork is still there. There is no cross framework on the back of this coach body, so the most definite measurement that I have to go off of is actually the undercarriage. There are saddles that hold the thorough braces in place. That is a set number. This happens to be 35.5 inches center to center of each of these side rockers. So that is a definite measurement. I have to go from there and determine what is the width of the body so that these rockers sit on the thorough braces properly. Well, it looks like the width of this front cross member is 4 inches, and you can see where it has a rabbet in it that accommodates the floorboards. So these floorboards evidently run lengthwise from front to back. So if the inside of the rockers is flush with the inside of the inside of the frame is going to be 33.5 inches wide. So the right side has a 3-inch iron, the left side has a 2-inch iron. I'm going to default to the 3-inch on the right side. So then we have 3 inches to the edge of the iron, but then we need a 3/4 inch sideboard, and then we need another 1/2 inch in raved edge on the lower side of this, as what will also show up on the top side of this body panel. And let me show you why I think that. So this is the right side where this 1.5 by 8 stepped out over a wider top frame of the sideboard panel. I think this sideboard is a 3/4. I think this top frame is 1.25 by 1 inch. My speculation at this point, and this iron was conformed around that. Well, it was also done here on the bottom. This is where the main framing would have been, and it's been bent out around for an extended side frame, which is a very common body style in building mountain wagons or spring wagons. I think this coach was built on that same styling. So if my premise is correct, if I allow 3 inches for the top iron, and I'm going to fudge that 2.5 on the left to make it work, but we have to have 3 inches for the top iron in the rear, 3/4 inch sideboard, which gives us 3 3/4, and we need another 1/2 inch out for this raved panel edge that is kind of uniform showing up through the side panels. So I'm guessing these side frames need to be 4 1/4 inches width. So if we have 4 1/4 on each side, there's 8.5 inches there. We need 33 inches, 33.5 inches actually between the rockers inside. So 33.5 and 8.5, we're ending up with an outside body width of 42 inches. Now this 42 inches is the outside width of the framework. Since you have these little raved edges on it, and you'll see how this is all going to work, we're going to come in the 1/2 inch on both sides, so actually the outside width of the body panels themselves is going to be 41. But I need cross frame member work at least 42 inches long. The rear one has to be wider yet, and I'll show you why. So on the outside edge of this rear framework, we have this support. But this curvature for the extra width is going to add us another 3.5 to 4 inches. We need it past the end in order for this to bolt through. So we need to come up with another at least 8 inches. So 42 plus 8, this rear cross frame has to be at least 50 inches wide. So another thing that showed up that just doesn't seem appropriate for a commercially built wagon or coach. And this is the use of the carriage bolts. A carriage bolt has a dome head, and underneath it has a little square shoulder. Well, when this shoulder is sucked down into the wood, it prevents this bolt from rotating when you tighten the nut. Well, on this coach body, throughout the whole thing, not 100%, but I'm going to say probably 95%, whoever built this put flat washers underneath the carriage head, which you would think, well, maybe that gives it a broader holding surface, but it actually takes that head away from the wood so that the square portion of that carriage bolt has less grip, which means the carriage bolts are more likely to spin. I'll show you where all over this coach has washers underneath the carriage bolt heads. And that's possibly a mystery that will remain unsolved. It's non-traditional for carriage building to put a washer underneath the carriage bolt head. So the question kind of arises in my mind, was it originally built this way? Or did this coach sometime in its life go through a significant wreck? And in the process of rebuilding it, were all these little things added for more strength? That's where I'm thinking some of this side brace irons, like on the side of the driver's box, possibly was added. Let me show you why I might think that. There has been a handle, kind of crudely made, on the side of both of the driver's box. It's on both the left side and the right side. But underneath where it was originally built and bolted and fastened to it, this iron has now been placed over top of that. And it hasn't been neatly formed, it's just been kind of incorporated into one of the bolts of this handle. Again, that seems to me like that is possibly an afterthought, perhaps a repair, not an original construction style. And you can see this right side handle was built the same way. I think this was added on after the fact, I think. These two handles are not uniform as well, which is kind of rough blacksmith work. The bolt pattern spacing on this handle on the right side is 7 inches. And the bolt spacing on the handle on the right side is 8 inches. Why an inch difference between the right and the left? So in my mind, the mystery still remains, who done it? Who made this coach? I am more and more convinced it was not a commercially made coach, but it was probably a hometown blacksmith shop that put this together, I think. To me, it doesn't have the look and feel of an Abbot-Downing. I'm less familiar with the Henderson, but I know they were a commercial business, and it just doesn't have that feel to it. So the question kind of remains is, what do I do with it? Do I put it back as I have it now? Do I factor in that possibly it had been repaired and some changes were made? You know, it's not a finely built coach. It has its rough edges to it, but that's what kind of makes it unique. Even if it was a small hometown built coach, it's still unique to whoever built it, whoever that is. And so as I work on it to restore it, that's where I feel like my integrity is owed, is to preserve that part of the coach, such as it is. Maybe give me your feedback on that and see what you think. But that's the challenge of preserving what it was, not making it into something that I want it to be that it never was originally, if that makes sense. So anyway, appreciate you following along. Thanks for watching.